Okay, welcome, Kristy. So it has been since 2018 since we first started working together. So I just wanted everybody to get like a quick bio on you. Like we worked together. You did the Back to You Academy. We did some one-to-one coaching. You were in the group, all the things that you never expected to do. So just tell everybody a little bit about you, like how old you are, that you were married before. I know you have a daughter. Just give us like a little bit of the background.
Okay, a little bit of background. I am 43, just turned 43 here at the end of July. I have a daughter who just turned 16, end of August.
Wow.
And she's a peach. She's awesome.
Well, she was 11 when we started working together.
I know, right?
Oh my God.
It's crazy. And so let's see, I was married for a whole 2 years. So I got married when I was, I believe, 26. We were together probably about 10 years before that. We were married for about a year, got pregnant, and then, left when she was 2. And
so why did you leave? What was wrong there?
There was a lot of verbal and emotional abuse in that relationship. And it was always kind of there, but I always found a way to kind of dismiss it or just get irritated and then, just kind of let it go. It wasn't physical. Can't prove it if you don't have the bruises type for it. So nobody really believed me. So I thought maybe I was a little crazy. But then what made me decide was like, I have to get out of this is my daughter. So when she was about 1.5 or so, she went to daycare. She's a wonderful little girl, but at about 1.5, she started biting kids and hitting them. And I have no idea where this came from because I'm like, she just doesn't do that. She's such a laid back kid. And then I think probably a month or so after this didn't stop, the daycare director pulled me aside and, she told me what was going on with Gwen and that was getting worse. And she started asking me about home life. And essentially what that came to is with the problems that were happening between myself and my ex-husband, she was taking that on, which people say
1.5.
1.5. People say kids are observant, but you don't think a 1.5-year-old like kind of gets that, but she definitely did. So when I realized it was affecting her and impacting her in such a negative way, I didn't think twice at that point. And so I was like, well, if it's like this at 1.5, right, and we stay together until she's 18 or whatever, I just didn't see any way that was going to end up well for her. Or her knowing how to have a healthy relationship with not just men, but anybody at that point. And so it took me a little bit, to kind of come to terms and get the nerve up. But then I did end up filing for divorce after that. It was probably about 2 years when the divorce was final, but I had left like 1 year into it. And I'll tell you what, within a couple months of me leaving, she completely stopped biting and hitting kids. Like the change was so quick and so, I guess, shocking to me. And then that's when I knew I made the right decision.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
she stopped seeing the traumatic fighting. So it must have been a lot of fighting, a lot of anger, a lot of emotion.
A lot of fighting, a lot of anger. He'd get mad at me while I was in the shower and he would literally put her in her seat and lock her in the bathroom with me. So I'd have to get out of the shower to take care of her. It's not a good situation.
Oh my God. Okay. So you made the right choice there. And at such a young age. So, and I also just want to say thank you again for doing this, because I know that a lot of people listening, these are the things that people are embarrassed to talk about. People are embarrassed to admit. And when you're going through it, you feel so isolated, you feel alone. Just before we hit the record button, we were talking about the shame that goes with it and that we feel like we just have to do it by ourselves for some reason. And we don't asking for help. I still feel like is something, I don't know, it just feels like, oh my gosh, I must be in a desperate situation because I'm asking for help, and we want to normalize like asking for help sooner and finding the people that do believe you. Because I know a lot of people just can't handle this kind of thing.
That's what's key is nobody believed me. And part of this, we tried to work it out, went to marriage counseling, and part of the deal was he was going to go to therapy and I will go. Well, at one point I had talked to his therapist and she explained it very much Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. She recommended some books to read, but she couldn't actually counsel me because she was already working with him.
Yeah.
But she explained it well. Nobody would believe me because he wasn't that way in front of, other people. And so what I must have been, being dramatic about the situation, or, it was too sensitive. And, when you start to hear that from your friends and family, you kind of feel defeated, and you do start to think, maybe it is in my head, maybe it is me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that I would have realized it or come to terms with it if I didn't have the situation with my daughter happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was, obviously, many years ago, 14 years ago, right? So then let's fast forward to when you and I connected. So we have a mutual friend, my friend, Shelly from high school, but you and Shelly are friends. I didn't know you guys were friends. I didn't even know you, right? So Shelly knew I was doing this Gumball Love thing, but tell me what led to us working together? Like, how did it come to be?
I would say, on a high level, Shelly's, one of my best friends. And so I was in a relationship at that point in time where I was getting frustrated with him. I wasn't getting what I needed. And I would talk to her about it. And she was great. It wasn't a, complete, oh, he's an awful guy, dump him type. But she's like, hey, how did you react to that situation? She's very good at talking about that. But after a while, she's like, hey, you need to actually find somebody to talk to. I'm your friend and I love you, but I can't keep doing this. So bless her heart, she gave me your name.
Which is always amazing when someone from high school takes you seriously as an adult.
Right, exactly.
I was like, oh my gosh, I love you, Shelly, for taking me seriously. Because, you still, when you go to high school, I don't know what that is, but it's like, it's hard to imagine when you see people from high school and they're like adults, you're like, wow, they're actually a parent now. It's so weird. Like you're not
exactly
still like playing sports in high school. So, okay. So then we talked about this a little bit, but you were somewhat resistant to that. So tell me about that. Like, why did you feel like, because you felt like, do I actually need help? So what was that like where you went through that kind of back and forth?
Yeah, I don't think she was necessarily wrong, but I also was a little frustrated that I couldn't just fix this myself, right? I'm very smart, I'm very driven and all this stuff. So why can't I figure out how to just fix the situation or make myself happy or whatever, the case may be at that point in time. And so that's when I looked at your site and some of your podcasts and started kind of listening, and a lot of what you were saying resonated with me. Even if it wasn't my situation, there was a lot of, oh my gosh, like, I know some people like that, not just men, but women or coworkers. And I was like, okay, you're actually making a lot of sense to me. It might not hurt to, kind of talk to you about it. And again, I just don't want to have to keep telling my story over and over. I was frustrated at that time because I'm like, just fix it. Right. Yeah. And so hesitant, but I think after kind of going through a lot of that, I was like, okay, it makes sense and it can't hurt. Right. You're not going to take me backwards. So if I don't go forward, right. But at least try to get something out of it.
Yeah. So what was your first, what made you decide to say, okay, I'm going to just go for this? Because at the time we were doing the Back to You Academy, which is still available right now. So I'm throwing that in with our Level Up for Love. But what was your kind of reason for just, okay, I'm going to do it? Because I think a lot of people they're on the edge. They're like, I know I should do this. I know I should, make this investment, but it's a lot of money. It's scary. Yes. I don't know what to expect. So what kind of made you decide, all right, I've got to do this?
I think it was our free consultation when I actually got to talk to you. And then it felt different. It wasn't going to be therapy like I thought it was going to be. I've done therapy. I don't need it again. Right. And just being able to talk to you, having that comfort level, knowing we could do the one-on-ones. I did join the academy. I requested to not be part of the group conversations. It's not my thing. I eventually joined some of them.
Yes. Which I think is great because some people, they don't want to be in the group. You were like, I'm not a group person. And then, I don't know, it was a few weeks later, there you were in the group. And
Exactly.
then you were like talking in the group, and I was like, we laughed about that so many times. Like, is this the girl that hates group? And I would think I would hate groups too. Like the old Melissa, I would be like, no, I don't want to be in a group, because groups can be kind of scary. It's like a little overwhelming. I don't want these people. I would be like, I don't want these other people knowing my business and
Exactly.
what I'm going
and quite
through.
frankly, I have my own stuff to worry about. I don't need to worry about theirs. It was a little bit selfish, and it's just like, just having, letting you or one person know what's going on is not admitting defeat, but it's not easy at first.
Yes.
But then the more we had our one-on-ones and talk, it just got so much easier, and it made so much more sense. And I just start to feel better because you help me think of things in a different way too, by asking the right questions, not necessarily telling me what to do, but giving me much better, more constructive thinking and way of looking at things than I was able to do on my own.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, it's amazing. So what do you feel like when we came together, you were frustrated? What do you feel like if you had to say, this is where I was in my relationship and this is what I figured out? Like, what did that transformation look like for you as we started working together? What were you able to figure out?
I think what I thought my biggest frustration at that point was, I couldn't help myself. But the biggest thing I think on my mind or poking me at that time was my relationship with my boyfriend. It was not what I wanted. I wanted more than he was giving me, or I thought so, right? We were button heads a lot, which is weird because we were really good friends, but we had both been single for so long, and trying to communicate with somebody when you expect them to communicate a certain way and they're not is extremely frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And so while you and I talked a lot about that piece in the relationship with him, but I think as we started to talk about that, my favorite thing that you ever said was to work on my own timeline. So, you know what, if it's going to take you 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years, just get there, do it on your own. Other people say you need to break up with them now. And it's just like, that's not what I wanted. I didn't know I know I wanted it to work, but that's about all I knew. But then as we started to work through the relationship pieces, it was easier for me to kind of put that in one bucket. And then my other bucket was really working on myself. And the more we talked about that piece and the more I put that into action, that bucket got bigger. This one got smaller because things started to slowly work out between us. I was a lot happier. I started to, while I did my own things, I still had some of this, oh, well, I won't do it now because he's coming over and I want to hang out with him. That doesn't happen anymore. If I want to do it, I'm going to go do it. Right. And the more
started to prioritize yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I just couldn't think of the word, but yeah, the more I prioritized myself and did stuff I wanted that made me happier, it had residual effects on my relationship to where that got better. And I think when my attitude with him started getting better, his got better towards me too. We were able to actually talk about stuff rather than, argue or try to make our points made. And it just seems the more I worked on myself and got here, this one just didn't, it was just easier, I guess, to get through. It's easier to communicate when you have confidence. And I wasn't scared to tell him what I thought or how I felt. And he never made me feel bad, but I learned through my marriage that, everything's my fault and your feelings are not justified. So there is some baggage from that. So I think that getting confidence in myself and what I was doing was kind of the biggest key to everything else working out.
Mm-hmm. And I just remember, I felt like when you weren't getting what you want, you felt like small, you felt insignificant. You were getting like weaker and weaker. And then when we started working together, it was like, oh, there's like this badass underneath there.
Yeah.
It really came out and you started to, because you guys broke up for a bit of time, right?
We did.
Yeah. And you started your business, right? You started your business. Coaching. I remember. Yes. Started financial coaching. You're still doing coaching now?
So I'm still available to do it. I actually took some time off 2 years so I could go get 2 career certificates in financial coaching. So I can now get to a point where I can take my certification exams.
See, that was a huge thing because you paid off what, $400,000 of debt in what period of time? It's like crazy short amount of time.
Oh, I paid, my house was it was about 490. I got that paid off in 18 months. And then prior to that, I had been debt free for probably about 10 years, just, strategically chipping away at it, got to that point. So then when I purchased this new house, I had already had everything laid out on how that was going to happen. And it's funny because that's a huge success. My goal was 5 years. I cut that down to 2 years, and then it ended up being 18 months. And you would think that feels amazing, but then you're right. When you kind of feel small and stuff, you get a little bit of excitement, but then it just doesn't seem very big in that picture. And so I don't know if that goes together, but it just, everything, it just all feels really good now. Like I said, got my career certificate. So I'm working towards that. The goal here is to be able to start to transition here in the next 4 years or so to go full-time into finance and get out of IT and to do what I love and help people.
And I just remember it was like, we started from the beginning. Okay, what's bugging you? And you're like, my garage is bugging me. So you did that massive garage clean out. I was like, that was one of my most fun transformations before and after, because it's like cleaning things out is such a cleansing. It's like, it's going through past, it's going through clutter, it's organization. And it was just something that it does build your confidence. I really do. I think that was like it was the physical symbol, one of those first things that I really saw you like, okay, I'm going to do the things that are bugging me. And then you started thinking about your business, and you were getting back to you, which was the whole idea of the Back to You Academy, is like not a previous version of yourself, but I know I'm going to get back to me. I'm going to work on myself. And this is where I love your story, because you weren't with the wrong guy. And so some people might have that same realization. They might break up permanently, but you guys were able to get back together. But I remember seeing, and this is where I think some girls we need that time to build our confidence and to feel like, okay, I can ask for what I want, and you're not going to scare him away. Because it felt like when we met, you were like, if I say these things, you needed to grow to the person that could to say, this is what I need and this is what I want. Because even in my own marriage now, like I have to speak up. I speak up all the time about random things. And I think, wow, and he's not intimidated by it. But the old Melissa would think, oh gosh, I shouldn't speak up about that, or I should just deal with it in private. And so that's where I feel like, talk about that a little bit, like what happened to you where you were able to change your dialogue and how that changed your relationship.
So I think that during that time where we broke up, it didn't feel great, but I don't know if this makes sense, but it felt necessary, because now all of that focus was on me and what I wanted to do. I had some things in mind, the business, possibly going back to school, all of that stuff kind of planned out of what I wanted to do to move forward. That time, I think, allowed me to just focus on me. And then through that process, gaining a lot of that confidence to go, you know what, I do love him, but he's not a mind reader either. So I need to have the confidence to speak up for what it is I want. He's not going to know if I don't tell him. You certainly can't beat around the bush and, give some clues and hope they get it. I mean, I don't get clues that people give me, just tell me straight up. And so I think just with all of that stuff and seeing what I can do on my own and how happy that made me, then by asking or going for what I want, same thing with that. I need to be able to communicate to him, tell him what I want, what I expect, what makes me happy. And in the same token, Melissa, knowing that I want him to tell me the same thing, and I want to respect that too. I think it's no more, oh my gosh, you need me to do this, because, all of that stuff is just out of your mind. If you're a solid person, your head's kind of on straight, you want to be able to tell people that, but then also receive that too.
Yes. And I love that one of my most favorite things about your journey is that your daughter, when you started getting back to you, your daughter saw what you were doing And then she designed your logo for your business. Which I was like, I get chills right now. I just literally have chills all over my body thinking about that, because that is such a powerful, powerful memory for her to remember. As I remember when my mom really thought about herself, she got back to her and she found her flight attendant career, a dream that she wanted to be a corporate flight attendant. And then she ended up flying the stars around. But I remember her at the beginning of that career, and to see your daughter seeing you go, okay, you know what? I'm going to think about what is it that I want, because now you have purpose. You have something to do. You want to help other people. You have helped other people. I remember we worked on your office and what colors you like, and flamingos, right? Flamingos are your favorite bird. I mean, it's just stuff like that where it was like, you know what colors do I like? What do I want my logo? What is really me? And that's what you really needed to find yourself again, because that's your relationship was salvageable, but you were losing yourself.
Yes.
Which is huge. So what would you say to a girl right now who's relating to this, that's considering, okay, do I really need help, or is this going to be worth it? What would you say to her, just based on what you know and what you've gone through?
Oh, that's a tough one. Just because I remember how stubborn I was in resistance in the beginning. I guess here's what I would say. Just try it out. Just try a 30-minute consult and actually talk to you. Because for me, I can read all this stuff, but even though everything you put on the internet's true, if you're going to talk to somebody about yourself and things this close to you in relationships, you need to be able to actually talk to them to see if they're a good fit. Right. And that was my biggest thing is, can I comfortably talk to you about an uncomfortable topic? And do you and I fit well together? So I think after that first, 30 minutes, or I can't remember, it was 30 or 60 minutes, we kind of talk through, while it's a hard subject, you're just very comfortable. You ask the right questions. I was expecting, maybe some judgment, or, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. You've screwed this up. It's been too long. There was none of that. And so I think just taking that chance to just have that conversation with you, that's what hooked me.
Yes. It makes me so happy. Yes. There's no judgment. I know a lot of people, everybody comes feeling already. So like by the time they come to me, they already just feel like, oh my God, I'm such a loser. And it's like the last thing I'm thinking. Exactly. We're so hard on ourselves. And so, yes, like I tell my girls, the bigger the mess, the more excited I get, because I love helping people figure it out. It's like, it doesn't matter how messy or how embarrassed you are, or like, how many Jerry Springer moments you think you've had. Like, it doesn't even faze me, because if you're here and you're like, help me figure it out, then that's the hope. It's like, okay, you're willing to dig in and look at things, then, but you're right. We have to be a fit too. So I think the 30-minute consult is the best way to just figure out, do you even like talking to me? Is this going to be a fit? Do you feel like you can be comfortable? And that's so important. It's why I offer it, because I've done the same thing. I have my business coach, and she was like, man, Melissa, you grilled me in the beginning. I was like, hey, you're expensive. It was thousands of dollars. I am not going to just pay that and not know who I'm paying. Like, I wanted to make sure I was getting what I was going to, I wanted to make sure I was going to get the result. So, okay. So tell us how you are now. This is years later, but I think this is why I wanted to have you on, because it's easy to have a client that's like, oh yeah, they work together and it's good now, but what is it like years later? What's the end result? So I wanted to kind of mix up these conversations so people could see, what is it like years later, and what are you still like, what's going on now, and what do you use from what you learned in our time together still in your relationship today?
Well, it's amazing. I do a little dance for you, but my camera's not big enough. Everything is going really, really well. My daughter is a junior in high school. She is doing her AP courses. She is, straight A's, playing the cello, on the bowling league. So she is flourishing and just an amazing person. And her and I do so much and work with her and all that stuff. Relationship. So boyfriend moved in middle of June of this year. which has really been fantastic. I was a little nervous I haven't lived with another adult in at least 14 years. And so it was a little nerve-wracking in my own head. But then the one thing to take away from you, Melissa, is I got to get out of my head. I start to have these conversations with myself, and then that's when things get bad up here. So it's like, okay, stop doing that. And so it's really been fantastic. And he hasn't lived with anybody since probably 3 or 4 years before we got together, which I think was like 7 years ago. So it's been a while. I think if there's been anything we've kind of run into, any bumps in the road since he's moved in, it's been fantastic because we just talk about it. There's no arguing like there would have been, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it feels really good to be able to have those conversations, because I'm not scared to ask him to do the dishes. I don't think, oh my gosh, is he going to get mad if I don't, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's just out there. I've got the confidence, and you know what? It makes a world of difference when you have that. So no, not planning on marriage yet. I'm still a little, hesitant from the last divorce, but we've talked about it. So someday, but yeah. I think this is a pretty big step for us, and it's been fun. We've already bought a new dining room table together and a new mattress together. And so, adulting.
Adulting. Oh, I love it. I'm so happy for you. You deserve it. And it's so cool to see you feeling good about yourself and your relationship with your daughter, like all of that coming together, that your confidence because that's the thing, like, you're like, do I really need help? It's like, I think, you are my ideal client, the woman who's got it all together and she's just stuck in this one area. But if you can just find the little things that need to be tweaked, you are capable of, like, I don't want to have to be in your life forever. Like, it's a season where we work together, and it's just little things you can have your eyes open to. And then, yes, you are capable of doing it all on your own, and the rest, not that we don't need help. Like, we all need help. I have a therapist and a coach. I mean, I think we all need accountability and structure there, but just because you have a coach or a therapist doesn't mean you can't do these things on your own. You are very capable,
yes.
But sometimes we do get stuck. We just need a little clarity here. We just need to understand, because, we only know so much from how we were brought up and our experiences, and just to have that expanded a little bit, to see other people's stories in the group too, which people don't have to be in the group.
Exactly.
Anti-group in the beginning.
You might warm up to it. I did.
Yes.
Yeah. And, sometimes I know people don't like to call it help. I don't want to seek help for something. So if you're thinking that, what I like to say is you're leveraging your resources.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. I know I can do it on my own. I probably would have eventually got there, but it could have taken me, 3 years versus however long we had worked together. And it's just always nice to have a different perspective and get out of your own head. Because, like I said, you can read about other people's stories, but you really helped connect things in a way that made sense for me, right? Versus what's going to make sense for somebody else.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, it is very personal. So, yeah.
It's definitely not a one size fits all.
Exactly. I know when I took the Gallup Strengths Finder test, this test, one of my top 3 is individualization. And so it's seeing people as individuals. And I've been that way my whole life. Whenever somebody would stereotype or group people together, that always bothered me. And I was like, why does that bug me so much? And when I took that Strengths Finder, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, your top 5 strengths are what you see in your life every single day. And so, yes, I very much approach every single client completely different, because I have my tools, but that's what to me makes it so exciting is each person comes in, they have a different guy that is a whole different dynamic. Like no relationship, there are definitely patterns, but the people involved in the dynamics and all the situations are so different. So yes. And that's what makes it to me so interesting. I never, like every new client is just like, okay, what is this going to be? It's always exciting to me.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, and I think on your tools, you have the tools. What was helpful rather than me just, going up and, say I find your tools on your website and try to work on those. I think you show people how to use those tools too. Mm-hmm. And that's the tailored part as well, because a tool might work for 5 different situations, but if you don't know how to use the tool, right? If you're trying to use a hammer when you really need a screwdriver, you're not going to go anywhere except just more frustrated. So I think that's a big part too, is being able to personalize it to your situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh, thank you so much, Kristy. This has been amazing to have you. It's so good to see you. And I'm just so happy that everything has worked out. And I can't believe I've been doing this for all these years too.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long since you and I first talked.
I know. It's really it's crazy when people will be like, oh yeah, I think I started following or listening to your podcast like 5 years ago. Like I might have been doing a podcast for more than 5 years. So yes, but thank you so much for taking the time. I know so many people will appreciate just hearing your story and watching. We all love to see a transformation, but you've been able to maintain it. You did the work and here you are 4 years later and it all worked and it's paying off and you're seeing the results. Your daughter is flourishing, which is amazing. And your coaching business is incredible. So if people want to find you for coaching or want to reach out to you for that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I would go to my website at simplesuccessfinance.com. Okay. Bio about me. Yep. Bio about me, a little bit about what I do. It's very high level, but absolutely, please reach out. My goal is to help people too, Melissa, like you do, but more with the finances. I'm not quite so good on this part like you are, but I can definitely help with numbers.
And I think that's a lot of people's weaknesses, especially people that have come out of divorce or they've been in a relationship or they've been, financially stressed by, whatever. The economy is crazy. I think a lot of people have no clue, including me.
That's what kicked mine off too, was the divorce. It was like, I've got to figure this out on my own. I have to be able to do it on my own. And so that just kind of skyrocketed and got me to where I'm at today.
So if somebody comes to you and they're like, I'm a complete mess, I'm in debt and I don't own anything, like, what is your ideal client? Maybe so people can get an idea of like, am I a fit to work with you? Because I think a lot of people could use this and I would love for all of my clients. We all need more money. So what would you say is like your ideal customer that would come to you and be the best fit?
So my ideal customer, my main focus is really on single women with children, just because that's kind of where I started and came out of this. Yeah. If you are looking to get out of debt or create a budget and try to figure out how can I start to build that wealth, that's my main focus. So I'm not really doing investments, any of that stuff. I can point you in the right direction for those, but mine is really that, how do I get out of debt? How do I budget my money? How do I start saving to where I can get to the point to talk to somebody about investments?
Oh, yes. I love that. Okay. I'm so glad I asked. So it's not, because I think a lot of people get really intimidated by, like I'm scared to talk about money and they're embarrassed about their situation or whatever. So maybe let's end on, what would you say to somebody who's like, I'm so embarrassed, I can't even imagine making that call and admitting to Kristy what a mess I am financially?
I would say the same thing I said about starting to work with you, Melissa, is just give it a try. Just give it a call. Talk to me. We can walk through a few things, see if we're a good fit for each other, because same with your coaching, financial coaching, you've got to have a good fit between the two folks. And then really it's, working from there and being comfortable and open at that point. But that's what I would say. Just have that quick conversation, see if you feel like you connect, what you're looking for and have the same goals, and then go from there.
Because how empowering to be in control of your finances.
It feels really, even if you have debt, being in control of your finances to know where it's going, that right there is powerful enough. So once you kind of reach that point and you're telling your money where to go, it's a very awesome feeling.
I love it. I love it. Kristy, this has been awesome. I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know so many girls will appreciate it. Single moms and single ladies, all of the above, everybody can benefit from this. But thank you so much for taking the time and for, telling about the backstory. Not everybody's willing to do this. So I really appreciate you doing this and taking the time out of your day. So we'll leave all the links in the post here so everybody can find you. And thank you again. This has been so fun. It's so good to see you.
Yes, you too, Melissa. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kristy.